Yeah, and I think we should actually close this out doing one thing that we forgot to do at the very top of the episode that I just now remembered. We didn't introduce ourselves. We didn't say our names, and we didn't match anything up with our voices. So we're gonna go through and do a round robin real quick and just give our names and just I'm gonna cut it out and drop it at the start of the episode so people can actually follow along with the conversation. Um, I'm David Schuler. I'm the person talking right now.
Ben Martinez. I'm the other guy.
I'm Jacob Finkbeiner. I'm the faceless bear.
Other than that, man, we just kick back, relax, and shoot the shit. I made a drink, and all it did was make me sleepy. I shouldn't have done that. But
Nice.
but yeah, man, let's just I don't know. We just talk.
I think one of the things that I wanted us all to kind of bring to the world, or I should say, share with the world, and I don't want to sound pedantic, bring to the world, but is where we came from, and in many ways how it equipped us, but also how it ill-equipped us for some of the broader conversations and experiences that we've come to find in our lives and places we've gone, college, etc. You know, the setup of coming from little rural agrarian beginnings and what that does, you know, were we necessarily taught hegemonic oppression as that term? No. I mean, we didn't learn even really what that was until college, at least for me. Possibly Dave, Jake might have had a better grasp of that. He's always been pretty solid with language, but you know, we existed in a space that is pretty common across a lot of America, you know, and unfortunately, it is a space that is trying to take hold, or I should say, the people that are trying to take hold currently right now, banking on that space. And
Right.
I don't think that space is as entirely lockstep with them as they might believe. And I would like us to be able to provide a voice to a greater audience, but also to people from where we come from, or maybe from an environment similar that might be on the edge, or might be wondering, you know, like little old me from, you know, Podunksburg in middle America, like
Mm-hmm.
why not toe the line? You know what I mean? Why not be NRA? Why not be conservative? Why not? And honestly, I would like us to be able to express through this endeavor. It doesn't work. It never has, and it never will.
Right. Yeah. I've always kind of thought about this project that we're kind of embarking on as a way of forcing my parents to listen to my political opinions, and they can't turn me away. So that's kind of what I was looking forward to, and really, I was honestly just really looking forward to like reconnecting with you guys because we did this thing in college, right, where we just sort of talked all the time, constantly, and about just a million different things, and it was like this little Socratic exercise, right, where we just sit there and we circle up and we just try to kind of pick apart each other's arguments. And what it did was just like force us to think critically about like what we were experiencing, what was happening in the world around us as we became like more and more aware of, you know, where power actually lay in our society as you know we left our like you said, bench our very small, very like rural, very agrarian hometowns and experienced a larger, wider world that was really at odds of what we were told was out there and what we were told it was going to be like. And I don't know, man, we're all just in a process of like discovery and like rediscovering everything like that. And it would seem like a really cool and interesting project to like just meet up once a week and like share those thoughts and share those ideas.
Absolutely.
But yeah, man, it all kind of comes down to like, where are we from? Explain it to, I think I put that in one of the show notes of just like, how do you explain like our home to someone who's like never seen it before? Because I had to go through that experience with like meeting folks out here on the East Coast, you know,
It's
introducing my girlfriend to Warden and Grant County and all that.
yeah, it's a completely different way of life. than almost anywhere else seen. Oklahoma actually can have some of the same feel to it, but
That
I
doesn't
mean, I've
surprise me.
yeah, I've been around to a lot of places in the US and nothing feels like the Columbia Basin. Like it has its own feel to it.
I was gonna say Jake's been to some serious places, some serious different locales throughout the country. And me to an extent, the West Coast and such. But I would agree, like there's a lot that is taken for granted where we come from. There's a lot that people don't associate with, but I guess that would be the general feel that I have towards that is like you had said, Dave, and other conversations that we had to paint a picture, right? We live where we come from, an environment that is approximately 130 years old, an economy that's approximately 75, 80 years old, that is completely and wholeheartedly subsidized by government expenditure and big government programs, and yet it's treated, and in a lot of ways it is down home living, so to speak. You know what I mean? Country, like we grew up in the country, but it's a country that has fiber optics. It's a country that has satellite GPS, markers for 500 to $1 million tractors and combines and interrogators and various other things like that. So it's very much so a blending of technology, innovation, the modern era, and a lot of the agrarian, old-timey kind of homesteading of yesteryear. The number one thing being that it is completely and wholeheartedly, and this is the irony, I think, artificial.
Right. It's incredibly industrial. So if you wanted to like paint a picture of it, it's high, it's like high plains desert, doesn't get a lot of rain. It's entirely irrigated by a series of dams along a huge river. And it is like industrial, like agriculture. Essentially, it's huge swaths of land completely devoted to these massive public projects. And like you said, Benj, like it's only like 100 and some odd years old. It's a pretty new state in the union, and yeah, it's I kind of always thought of it as this place because I'm like, oh, it's the country, it's rural America, it's like closer to nature in some ways. And then I just thought like, well, no, nature didn't lay the railroad track to like bring the people out here to grow like a plant that isn't even like native to the area or something like that, and in like massive quantities too. And I think the thing that industry does, especially to the people that like labor in it, especially people who like generationally are laboring in it, well, it kind of leaves an impact on you, in a way that you really only see in other places that have had things like steel mills or that also have like industrial like agriculture or something like that.
Jake can speak to that, given the fact that he comes from a clan of folks that homesteaded and settled in the area. He has relatives that recall when the dam went in and spouts of water were just appearing in the middle of nowhere. And
Right.
the whole while you have people that are arriving in a region that was already inhabited,
Mm-hmm.
and then those people were given the region to settle,
The biggest scare quotes.
right? And then in the process of settling it, fast forward 70 years, and you have another group of people that are being brought in to work that quote unquote settled area. And it's just, I mean, it is a microcosm of the United States of America to a great degree. I mean, it's paradoxical, it's oxymoronic in a lot of ways. And in some ways, it's absolutely a beautiful place. I mean, we can look at the sunrise
Yeah.
and get nostalgic about home. I remember when we came back, Jake and I, from Oklahoma, I kissed the ground because I missed home.
Mm-hmm.
But it was sacred to me because of what it meant to my Mexican side, my family, arriving in a place where they could survive, where they could
Right.
take root, so to speak, but having to deal with a history that we were never really taught. I mean, yeah, we took Washington State history. We learned about the Whitmans
Yeah,
You
I was
can,
gonna say you learn about Whitman catching an axe in the back of his head.
right? You learn about like the Yakima. We don't even talk about the Yakama. We don't. It,
No, it's a place where you go to play state.
exactly. It's a very. I don't want to bag on anthropologists because I think they do a lot of solid work. Ethnic studies
Sure.
folks, and I feel like maybe some philosophy folks like Jake can definitely problematize, to coin that phrase that we used in college a lot. But
No,
uh,
Benji, I like this angle you're taking. You're here to kill anthropology.
or when you approach humanity in a taxonomic way, there's invariably going to be,
When you
uh,
take the humanity out of it.
yeah, that perfectly said, brother. I mean, to be honest, and so that was a lot of how the West was settled, right? People were approaching it in a very, I would say the upper crust approached it in a taxonomic way. And then the folks that were on the ground, the grunts, as it were, the people that were being offered vast tracts of land if they would only go and dig a well and tame the wilds, they had religion to fall back on, right? But it's always
Yeah.
been, there's always hucksters. The people have always been trying to hustle one another in this country, and I don't know. I think that ties directly into where we come from, right? Because part of that hustle is the fact that we were brought up with certain ideals, we were brought up with certain goals, we were brought up with certain aspirations. Separate from goals, I mean, just that kind of dreaming, lofty, idealized world of, I don't know about you or Jake, but get married, have kids, woman will take care of the home. There's absolute good and absolute evil in the world. It's very easy to define. Everything falls into place as it should, as long as you know, dot your I's and cross your T's and
Right.
do the right necessary stuff, shit, bullshit,
Right. It's maintained a kind of a pretty like old fashioned like culture to it because it was like you said like one of the last places in that big American project to kind of like fall into place. So where like other places in the United States may have moved on in terms of what was to be expected from you, your labor, who you married, what the roles were going to be inside that marriage as well. A lot of that is like, I don't know, like I have this thing where I'll be talking to my partner and she'll tell me just like, well, sometimes your attitudes sound very African in that she doesn't recognize them as like typically American or what something that she would consider be typically American is because it might just be an attitude that is so old fashioned that it just seems like, no, this is it's not in lock and step with kind of what a lot of the rest of the country thinks or how well maybe not even like viewing the world through the same lens because we're operating a much older pair of glasses to really torture this metaphor. And like I said, it's really pretty. It's there's a tremendous amount of sky in that place. My girlfriend was finally like, yeah, I get it. I get why you're so attached to this place. I see why it's like in your blood. There's like a poetry to it that is like really difficult to explain. But it's definitely there and it definitely leaves an impact on you. And it's kind of one of those things where it's like that Russian idea of like the Rodina. It's like the Mother Earth. It's like you're kind of a lesser person by being away from it in a lot of ways. But yeah, and that's home. Just a shitload of fields, some like paved streets, tiny towns, slightly larger towns. No real cities to speak of. You got to go up into the hills, either into Yakima or Spokane, before you start hitting like a real city. But yeah, yeah, or head down to like the Tri Cities and stuff like that, because that's just a full blown massive population center now. What it
right?
used to just be a mall when we were kids.
I used to load onions out of Road 68 with my grandpa in the back of our agricultural commodity trailers. Not to be cynical, to be negative as well, but I think part of the reason why, at least for me, I've come to love it more so now that I'm older and kind of separated from our childhood and having seen a few things, learned a few things, but a lot of it, the beauty, the initial beauty had to do with when you live in shit, you really have to create a narrative to survive it. You really have to create an idealized way and means of escaping. You know what I mean? And that's not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily take away from it being a beautiful place.
Right.
But, you know, the landscape is marred by agricultural investment from giant corporations. You know, the
Yeah.
entire structure and grid is hell bent on squeezing out every last bit of profitability from where we come from. And there's kind of a return currently where people are starting to go, hey, wait a second, you know, we've got to have more sustainable stuff. We've got to think about the future. We've got to, I guess the word would be cherish the location that we're in and where we come from. But you know, to be honest, Dave, I mean, to listeners and all that type of stuff, Wardens, for people that have never been anywhere like that, it can be depressing as hell. Like we survived it. We survived it. Jake moved to Spokane, right? In what grade, Jake?
Spokane was 6th grade.
6th grade. You know, that must have been just a freaking mindfuck, to be honest, because I mean, Jake grew up off of Lee Road, Dave. I don't know if I've ever told you that. I used to be jealous of his treehouse. We'd always drive there on the way to Othello to deliver potatoes. And I saw his treehouse, and I remember being like, man, whatever kid has that freaking treehouse, it's a lucky son of a bitch, because that is
my treehouse.
badass treehouse. And to be able to move to Spokane and yet still have ties to the country, that's pretty cool. And like you, Dave, to be able to move to DC. Here I am in Tri-Cities, the freaking biggest place that I've ever lived. I don't know, it's kind of interesting that it feels a lot like we survived some sort of trauma. Because even when I go back to Warden, I love it because of the history and where I come from and all that. But I look at it and I still think, man, this place, it's a distillate place for people to just work and take care of their corporate masters, basically.
It's an exploited town.
Yeah. Not to get all, well, actually, yeah, to get all Marxist and socialist, whatever the hell you want to call it. Like, it is completely and wholeheartedly proletariatsville, man. Like, that's what the fuck it is. That's middle America, though, and that's what I want to start talking to people about, because fuck, I mean, whether it's big oil, whether it's coal, whether it's steel mills, whether it's fucking Idaho. I mean, look at Idaho. We always cap on Idaho from Washington, right? Jesus Christ, thank God we're not Idaho.
Yeah, it's a little bit of like an Alabama-Mississippi situation where they both kind of are glad the other exists in that, so that they won't be the worst state in the union. Right.
And that's just it. Like, when you drive through southern Idaho, you see places where, you know, the state has sold land, once again, appropriated from indigenous people, to just have an open dump, you know, to get rid of waste, toxic waste, various all kinds of other, and it's just like, it's big enough. We don't have enough people. Keep Idaho rural. And it's like, no, that doesn't work. And you always hear about Eastern Washington wanting to like merge into this fictitious state with Idaho and Eastern Oregon. And, oh my God.
That's like that's like fodder for like an entire like episode in and of itself. Just like the insanity of secessionists and people who have this idea of kind of like redrawing the state maps. So I don't know. So you just completely like dismantle your own tax base. Like, let's think this through, you guys.
You know, when Jake and I lived in Oklahoma, we at least I hated describing it the way that we had to, but it is, and this is problematic, right? Oklahoma, when I was there, I described it as a third world country within the United States. Now,
I've seen a couple of those since I've been traveling around the United States as well. And then you realize they're just like, oh, this whole country is kind of this with just the shiniest shade of lipstick on it, right?
No, it's basically stuck in the 60s.
Yeah.
And then I got to thinking too, though, right? What does it mean to say that it's third world when folks in the third world, for instance, what quote unquote the West describes as the third world, they haven't had the advantages that a state like Oklahoma has. They haven't had the protections, the investment, the infrastructure, the national support system, you know? And so to call it a third world country, I think, is an insult to third world countries.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But at the same time, right, I don't want to insult Oklahomans, but it made me think like there is a state that is older than Washington that is completely given over to private interest, and it gives just enough, I guess, support to numb the damage that it does. You know, it gives just enough. You have just enough allure of maybe making some money and maybe going out and getting a 20-acre homestead or something like that. You know, to just
Right.
kind of not worry about watering your grass and killing it because someone fracked 2 miles up the road, or you know, your lifespan's been degraded because of noxious fumes and poisoned groundwater. Like,
Oh, bro, yeah, just like living next to any sort of petrochemical operation is just like recipe for like cancer. There's entire swaths of Texas that they just call Cancer Alley.
exact right, and that's bringing it back to Eastern Washington. Like, we are so spoiled here in the sense of like the only major ecological thing that we have. It's a pretty major one,
Hmm.
but billions of dollars are spent on it every year to try to figure out what the hell to do with it. Is hampered.
Right.
You know
Yeah,
that.
I mean, we did have the Green Run, if I remember right.
What was the Green Run? You'll have
Yeah,
to
what's that?
explain
That
that one
was
to me.
a huge like radiation test experiment, and
Oh
I'm
wow,
pretty sure that's why my grandpa died.
Oh shit.
was that Jake? Was that one the one that you described where like the dust that blew from Hanford over like the Frenchman Hills and all that over Radar Hill was what got him?
The Green Run was a secret U.S. government release of radioactive fission products on December 2nd and 3rd, 1949, at the Hanford Site plutonium production facility.
Christ.
I just looked that up. Holy shit. They did
Yeah,
this
it,
with
it swept all the way up through Othello and stuff. And lo and behold, my dad's dad died when my dad was 13. So, like,
wow.
11 years after this. And
God.
he was a big outdoorsman.
Oh, holy shit. This reminds me,
Yeah.
this this fucking government did this exact same thing with like chemical weapons over San Francisco in the 50s, I think. They did
Yep.
the exact same thing. We're just going to put a little bit out there and see what happens. Holy shit.
Yeah. Let's just test on the populace.
Right in the middle of nowhere, agrarian, down home America, patriotic mumbo jumbo bullshit. Let's fucking kill them because they'll keep coming back for more.
Noble
Yo,
sacrifice for the country.
that's wild. I had no idea that was in there. I thought it was weird. We just had a bunch of missile silos as well.
Oh, yeah. No, like, I know lots of weird little things because, yeah, my family helped build the railroad coming over here.
Oh,
So
dang.
we've been around for a minute.
Yeah, no, my family were hillbillies out in Blue Mountain, Virginia before they moved out to Yakima.
I had a migrant grandfather and a grandmother that was first generation Mexican American, good old 1950s gal that absolutely believed until probably her 70s, after I had bugged her enough about it, that the 50s were not all that they were cracked up to be. She came
Oh,
around.
you don't say. 1950s America for a brown woman wasn't all that great.
She was in a relatively
Rosy
in,
glasses.
yeah, she had a little bit of insulation going on. It kind of all went to
Sure.
shit though when Grandpa gave her dad. They had to come up to the middle of nowhere, BFE. She learned real quick what the rest of the world was kind of like. And then
Mhm.
the white side, the European American side, they were North Dakota, Minnesota, Illinois, South Dakota.
Kind of that
Grandma's
Midwestern like migration thing.
Yep.
Yeah, grandma's grandma lived in a freaking sod house. My grandma's mom was a Rosie Riveter in Bremerton, building ships.
Oh, wow.
Her dad was in the forestry service, so he didn't fight in World War II because he had flat feet and eczema. So he went out and chopped down trees.
Yeah, they made you join like the CCCP or something like that. Not CCCP, that's USSR and Russian. The CCC, Civilian Conservation Corps or something like during the war, if you could like serve in the war effort.
That's something entirely else.
Yeah, they made you join the Soviet Union if you could serve in the war.
What's crazy is that like the Mexican side ended up in Washington, coming up from the south, and the like European side ended up in Southern California, and that's where the two axes came together.
Yeah.
And but
A
yeah,
lot of bouncing around to get you.
yeah, man, it's been a trip.
Yeah, that's wild. My mom's side of the family that I learned more about after my grandpa passed away last year, they were like English and like Dutch immigrants who came like in the like 19th century, so like the 1800s at some point, and they ended up like homesteading in like South Dakota and places like that, like Kimball, South Dakota, and that's where my mom was born. And when she was really young, they moved to somewhere in Washington State. I'm pretty sure it was like I can't remember if it was they moved directly to Royal City or if they had just moved there eventually. But yeah, they came directly over from the Midwest too.
Oh wow.
So did they just like up and move and homestead again?
No, they moved into the city, and my grandpa ended up running a service station, like a gas station and tire joint. And God, they ran that place all the way up until they had even like after they had like officially retired and stuff like that. And he also had like 9 different jobs around the place. He was a school bus driver. He was a garbage man. He did a bunch of other things. They operated
Yeah.
storage sheds and a car wash. Like it was just a million things. Shit, he had 6 kids. He had to take care of them.
Jeez.
It's a trip.
Oh yeah.
I think that's why, if someone asked us what are our credentials, we could talk about our degrees. We could talk about at some point we might have to, depending on how far this goes or where this goes and all that type of stuff. But like our credentials are the fact that we come from an environment, a place, a history that a lot of people come from. The unfortunate thing is a lot of people that come from that place, not everybody, but a lot, haven't, I don't want to say opened their eyes, but haven't done what we've done. And I don't think that it's character defect. I think it's just the opportunity hasn't presented itself. But at least that's what I'd like to think. I'm sure there's some assholes out there for sure.
Yeah, and I think what you said before about how people in difficult places end up telling themselves stories to kind of survive as like a survival mechanism, right? And I'd been thinking a lot about like how we're raised to think about work, especially, and how we're raised to think about labor and like what the actual like value of our labor is it runs deep. It is like bone deep. It is something that is really difficult to like change and break out of, to like feel like you always have to be like doing everything, and you got to be doing it hard, and you got to do it early, and you got to get it done. You got to wake up at the break of dawn. You got to work till it's dark out, that kind of thing, because that was the dedication that the jobs around where we grew up kind of really demanded that, and still demand that. Like it's really hard backbreaking stuff that will absolutely grind your body down doing it for your entire life. And we have a whole population of, these old shit kickers who can hardly walk around anymore, right? After just the beating of just living in this place and working in this place just takes on you after a while. And when you know it, we don't have like healthcare to like take care of these people either. So that's also like the another like mark against everything of just of like having to live here. And you got to think about like if you have to tell yourself that this place sucks and you're disenfranchised, well, you're gonna have to rewrite all these narratives that you've been told to sort of tell yourself by living in this place, and kind of being exploited in this way. Because no, this is the best place in the world. How could we possibly be exploited? And it's just like, well, people must be figuring out something, because how else does like demagoguery show up and suddenly like take effect? It's because they're tired. I don't know. I lost my thread there, but it's, yeah, people tell
Well,
themselves a story and they
to
can't break out of it, right?
really think about like how deep the story runs. God had to give a day of rest because people were being worked 7 days a week, 24/7, basically, as hard and long as capitalists of the time, the people at the top, the 1%, were able to get away with.
Right.
And so they were like, no, God rested on the seventh day, so everyone should get the seventh day. And that's how deep it runs.
Right.
And I would add a caveat. The only difference, because See, when I hear that description of what you talked about, Dave, I hear farm boy.
You hear what?
And
Farm boy?
farm boy, I hear get up early in the morning,
Oh
take
yeah.
care of animals, and
Yeah.
you know, when it comes to work, in my experience, the biggest, and I think that's where a little bit of the cultural difference is, because by no means am I trying to like denigrate what you're saying. I absolutely remember admiring you as a kid, going, man, Dave gets up at 5 in the morning to feed his rabbits or his freaking steer, or like
Right.
Jesus, or hearing stories about Jake hand lines and watering things, and just fuck.
Oh, I never had to move hand lines. Thank God. Thank God. That is a thankless, awful job. You either bake to death in the sun or you get frozen. It's just the worst shit. I've never had to move hand lines. Thank God.
Yeah, no,
And see,
I lucked out on that.
for me, growing up in town, right? But as a brown kid, as part of the Mexican community, it was always do everything you possibly fucking can to make your boss happy,
Oh
because your
yeah.
boss is your savior or your destruction, and then to
Right.
take pride in absolutely beating the shit out of yourself but getting the job done. So a lot of Mexicans where I grew up, Mexican Americans, would sit there and go like, yeah, we're tougher than those gabachos over there, because we're just built tougher.
Yeah, you just it's that warrior spirit. You can just keep pushing on, right?
The problem with that is that you fucking burn the candle at both ends,
Right.
and it really doesn't benefit anybody except, once again, like Jake said a few seconds ago, that upper 1%. That's one of the biggest things I learned when I went off to college, and even later on, and I still battle with it. Even with my job currently, I still battle with it. The ownership and all that type of stuff. It's just like,
Hmm.
oh my God, I left to go take care of my kids. Oh, what's going to happen? Forgetting the fact that I'm college educated, forgetting the fact that I have experience, forgetting the fact that I have multiple feathers in the cap, so to speak. It goes back to that, all the way back to that childhood thing. Fucking keep your boss happy, or else you're fucked.
Hmm.
And that's the only thing I would add to that, right? So you have that thing, like you said, back-breaking stuff, no health care, um, just complete exploitation. And then throw on top of that those people, in a lot of cases, are the bosses of other people. And it completely just, it's crazy. You get people like,
Honestly, Benji, the town is so small that's probably too much information right there. So I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna edit that out, but I'm gonna leave in this explanation so people can do their guessing. But yeah, I know. As soon as you said just a certain family, I knew exactly what you were talking about. But yeah, go ahead, finish your thought.
wealthy, 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 right? And what's it made on, right? I want to say that the father, the grandfather, rest his soul, he passed away, was first generation Scandinavian, built an
Right.
empire, Eastern Washington, on the backs of Mexicans, you know,
Hmm.
completely and wholeheartedly, like, just, oh my God, just crazy stuff. And to try to, even for us, right, my family, in a relatively elevated state of being an actual truck driver, because that's a skill set, you have equipment, etc.
Hmm.
Trying to get a fair wage out of that son of a bitch was like pulling teeth, man. Like, there was an example, there
Right.
was one time where we had said, hey, no, we need this rate, and I don't know if he had agreed or whatever, but when time came to pay, he balked and paid us the other one. What do you do? What do you do to that?
But if you have a contract, take him to court. But then he's got a lot
But
more money.
but that's just it,
Hmm.
brother. There is no contracts in agricultural labor.
Yeah, it's true.
Oh shit.
Just like you don't have, with regard to, Dave and I talked about this before too, and I never realized it until Dave hit me in the middle of the forehead with it. But our current agricultural system is an extension of, I don't want to say, because I don't want to equivocate or try to remove the horror of the history of it, because it's not nearly as bad as it once was, but it is the extension of, um, chattel. The only difference now is that, not the only difference, but quite a few of the differences are that the owners don't have to feed, house, you know, not that they did that very much back in the day. And that's not to say, once again, because this is kind of a scary thing to talk about, it's not to say that it is the same. It's not the same. But it is to say that that demon that Jake had brought up earlier, I use the term demon because I can't get rid of my fucking Catholic like indoctrination, is exploitation, right? It's the exploitation. The previous example, slavery, is the worst fucking kind of exploitation we could even imagine. I can't even imagine it. It's up to my wife and the various other folks whose ancestors were slaves, and I can't even fucking, I can't imagine it. I cannot. I hit a cognitive wall. It is so horrible. It's so abhorrent. It's so just, there's not words. And so I want to critique myself in saying this. By no means am I saying that modern agricultural labor is even close to slavery. It's not. But its pedigree is definitely from the same breeders.
It's not, but this is the very thing that got me to completely change my stance on most everything. I realized there are non-citizens working our fields, working our plants for wages and returns that an American citizen could not live on. And that got me to go, whoa, that may not be the same thing, but it sure as hell echoes the same.
For sure.
It's almost like this system we have in place needs like a completely like exploited underclass in order to function.
Yeah, it absolutely does. It's a descendant of. And that's why I keep pointing the finger back to about 12,000 years ago, because that's when agriculture took off. That's when domestication took off. We started domesticating animals, we started domesticating plants, and we started domesticating people. We started using slaves at the same time. So it's been interwoven, and it's been a thread. And not all of the world follows that thread, but I'm specifically talking about, like, if you are an American, you can trace your finger back,
Right.
because we are a descendant of that, and it comes from the biblical stories and stuff, because that's the areas that it came from, like Mesopotamia.
Right.
Area that
And
is so
every age that has like a golden age or an age of enlightenment has been built off of a slave structure of exploitation. They've always had some underclass that they are exploiting to do most of the labor for as cheap as possible.
That's wild.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see how, like, in one stance everyone on this planet is essentially a descendant of some sort of slave structure system at one point, and how much that influences us, because even the people that are dominating are still descendants of.
Especially because that kind of exploitation takes so many different forms at so many different points in history as well. It might not have even have been something as explicit as chattel slavery. It could have been like serfdom. It could have been a lot of different things. But then, yeah, as like economics like systems like shift and stuff like that, it's just it finds another way to like redefine itself. So like the exploitation, like, yeah, it's not slavery, but it's kind of just like slavery with extra steps.
Yep, they originally called it wage slavery when wages were first being
Right.
kicked around.
There's a lot of folks in this country that use, and I'm not saying by any means we are, but I think that since we're talking about folks from where we come from and trying to get people on the same page as to kind of like where we're at, to maybe expand their minds, expand our minds in the process, there's a lot of folks there are a lot of folks, I should say, that use that historical narrative to not deflate, but dilute the trajectory and intensity of the American experiment. To say that throughout history and time immemorial, this has been a human feature of the system, right?
Right. It's not a bug, it's a feature, that kind of thing.
Exactly. But there has never been in the history of humankind an experiment, a entity, as it were, a political mark on humanity that has affected as many and to such a great extent as Western Europe, and the distillate of Western Europe being the United States of America. And the psychology, the psychosis that went into dehumanizing people, and the hypocrisy, and the level to which the depravity basically leaked its way into every facet of this entire place. It
Hmm.
cannot be. It cannot be understated. It cannot be.
Yeah.
I should say, it cannot be overstated. It's like Jake was saying. Yeah, it started 12,000 years ago, but fuck if the founding fathers didn't take that grain liquor from 12,000 years ago and make some serious shine out of that shit, man. Like, very distillated,
Oh
very
yeah.
potent, very poisonous, very noxious, and with a veneer of like a sweet cherry coating. Like, oh, democracy and America and ideals. And yeah, even businesses can have fucking wonderful vision statements and truth models, as they go and fucking kill people. Like,
Yeah, it makes me think of a lot of like, okay, the electric car is going to like save the world somehow, but you really don't think about the person who has to dig in the lithium mine to get the stuff for your
Yeah.
battery.
yeah, the autocratic country that fucking forces the Uyghur like person that could. Thank you, John Oliver, for fucking making me even realize what a Uyghur was. Like
Hmm.
an ethnic group of people in China that are just fucking getting reamed by China. Like,
Yeah, my favorite one is Elon Musk supporting a coup in Bolivia to get better deals on lithium mines.
yeah, what the fuck is that? Like, and
It
you know,
doesn't surprise me.
No, that happened a couple of years ago, and the country revolted to such a degree that they had to hold a referendum to vote in the president again. They brought in the same communist guy that they voted in the first time, uh,
nice.
so that worked out. I guess. Who knows? We'll see.
Even our own state, right? Our patron saint, freaking Bill Gates, the piece of shit. Like,
Oh, you mean the largest landowner in America, the largest
right?
farm owner? Yeah.
The guy that when approached, I want to say because he helped back. Oh, what the heck is the British? This sound like a dumb American now. What is the British college university that helped with the? A lot of them did, but it's part of the naming of the pharmaceutical company that had to do with COVID vaccinations.
Well, I don't
You know,
remember which one, but there's like Oxford and Cambridge, and
I want to say it was having to do with Oxford, but
right.
I can't remember the actual like name of. I'll have to look that up. I'll have to research more for our show. The point is that it came down that they could have provided um, basically an open template patent right for generics to the world, so that people
Right.
could fucking help rid it of this scourge. And let's just say that our patron saint in Washington was very adamant about that not being the case.
Oh yeah,
Didn't want,
he's protecting intellectual property at all costs.
yeah, including human life,
Spared no expense.
right? Fuck. And I mean, and these are the things I wish more. Like, I want more people from where we come from and around the world, fuck, just this country in general, to be able to sit there and go, we can have these discussions. We can sit there and we can go. I'll never forget in college talking to some folks, some of my frat bros, right? And then being like, God damn, dude, that's too much. That's stressful. The privilege to be able to sit there and go like, fuck, that's too stressful. I don't want that in my life. And it's just like, fuck, dude, so many people. I ran into a guy the other day, and it's amazing the people you run into. Oh yeah, I mean, the world's coming to an end. What the fuck? Like, okay, well, I mean, yeah, dude, it's scriptural. So wait a second. Let me just get this straight. You you can't possibly step outside of the framework of your own ideology, sit there and go like, and not even break it down that complex. You can't possibly conceive of another option other than it's either my way. Oh fuck, that's not working. But the world's coming to an end.
It's
What?
oblivion.
Yeah,
And
what the fuck?
yeah, and to reiterate a classic George Carlin bit, like the world's not going to end. We will.
Right?
Yeah,
The,
right.
the thing that I love about the world's going to end viewpoint is we have at least 2,000 years of people saying, and it's going to end now, and now, and now, and I think it's going to end now, and now maybe, and maybe now. And people are still pushing the idea that we are in the end times. And it's like, guys, that's also part of capitalism.
Right.
It seems to me, right, coming from that wonderful Catholic background, like I said, fuck. No disrespect to Catholics. I got Catholics that I'm related to. I think Gnostic following Catholics, and kind of the in the traditions of some of the Dominicans and some of the Jesuits and stuff like that. The good ones, not the ones that fucking still committed atrocity. I'm talking the people that like were killed because they helped the indigenous people rise up against the empire. The the idea that your bullshit can go right and keep perpetuating itself so that way you don't have to clean up the mess, and then you trump card the fucking cow button from our days with NES, right? That resets the whole fucking game is, oh, well, it's the end times. Like, nothing that your ideology provided, or at least could have provided, has done anything to fucking take care of this wonderful Eden that we've been given. And it's like the self-fulfilling prophecy of like,
A throwaway society.
Yeah.
yeah,
No, that's just an interesting idea of like, it's a gaudy throwaway society.
Disposable.
well, and that's what I come down to every single time I run into these cats. Like, and I mean no disrespect. I'm a spiritual guy. Like, I got a friend that's agnostic or atheist. I got another friend. I honestly have no idea, Dave, what you are, and I don't have to ask because unless you want to tell me.
I mean, I would say probably agnostic. I mean, I probably said atheist a couple of years ago, but it's just like, I don't know. There's things in the world that are difficult to explain that you feel. So,
And that's
probably keep it agnostic just in case.
and that's the beauty. That's the beauty of us and being able to talk. Right. That's the beauty of being human. I think that you can have these various viewpoints. The one thing, though, that I would like this show, tying it all back in together, is I do very much so like Adam Johnson, Dave, and Nima Shirazi that you showed me the citations needed. I do want to call out the bullshit. I do want to call out the bullshit. I want to fucking make people from all walks of life, from similar trajectories that we've been on, have to deal with it, and not in a way that's penalizing, not in a way that's pejorative. I don't want to make people suffer per se, but in a way that allows freedom, true, actual freedom. Not that bullshit of like red, white, and blue, Star Spangled Banner out of my ass shit. I'm talking like actual informed freedom.
Said not the Pledge of Allegiance freedom.
Yeah, no, fuck that. Oh my God. The shit that is happening right now. And I think we're going to have a lot to talk about. I mean, there's shootings, there's fucking anti-abort, like, Jesus Christ. And all the while, the world is actually on fire, like legitimately on fire. But it's coming to an end. Like, fuck me, no. No.
No, it's still happening. In fact, it's still happening all around you, and you should probably pay attention to it. But yeah, we're coming up on an hour now of chatting on this, and I think that was probably a really strong place to probably end this first episode on. Is just that kind of mission statement you gave right there, Benj, of just being like, yeah, we're allowed to sort of question things and call out the bullshit and try to see things as they are, and share them with each other and connect in a way that we're able to connect while we're still here. And that's a cool and interesting thing.
What's that, Jake? Sorry, I don't mind the
Well
phone.
said. Well said.
Yeah, man. No, Dave,
Yeah.
I think what you just said right there is, if someone asked me what the definition of love is, that's it. That's the most baseline definition of it. What's that?
Oh, no, I was going to say the bell hooks definition of it's a community of understanding. And I suppose if we do anything on this podcast, it'd be to understand each other.
Yeah. And to help other people to understand each other.
Hell yeah.
I think it's noble what we're trying to do. And I think the more people have their little podcasts and the more people listen to that type of stuff and the more people like talk to each other about that, like those three assholes were full of shit. Oh, really? Why were they full of shit? Have a conversation. Talk about it, At the end of the day, like you said, Dave, understanding. That's all we're trying to do.
That's excellent, guys. Yeah, we'll sit down and do another one. This was fun. I'm glad we got to do this, man. I miss this shit. This is the shit we got to do back in school, and I miss this.
I freaking love you guys. Like, you guys are two of the main reasons why I'm where I'm at today.
Oh yeah, man. I love you guys too, and it's been really good being able to catch up with
not
you.
being where I am were it not for both of you.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah, man. Well, I really got to go because I'm about to piss my pants. I've had to pee since about like 30 minutes ago. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording and hop off, man. I'll catch you guys later in the text thread.